While the world chases noise, validation, and endless connection, there's a specific type of person who finds power in something the crowd will never understand. Silence. Not the silence of loneliness. The silence of clarity. The silence where most people's minds unravel, but yours sharpens. If you've ever been called antisocial for choosing solitude, or boring for preferring home over parties, what you're about to discover will change how you see yourself forever. Because the psychology behind people who love staying at home reveals something the extroverted world desperately wants to ignore. You're not broken. You're just operating on a frequency they can't access. Let's decode it. Imagine two people standing in the same room. Same lighting. Same temperature. Same crowd. One person feels energized, alive, feeding off the chaos. The other feels their nervous system screaming for escape. Same stimulus. Opposite reactions. This isn't about personality preference. This is neuroscience, brain wiring, the fundamental architecture of how your mind processes reality. Here's what separates you from the people who think you're missing out. Your brain doesn't need external validation to feel whole. It doesn't need constant stimulation to feel awake. It doesn't need crowds to feel connected. In fact, it operates at peak performance when all of that noise is removed. Psychologist Hans Eysenck spent decades studying this difference. What he found was shocking. Introverts and extroverts don't just have different social preferences. They have different baseline cortical arousal levels, different dopamine sensitivity, different nervous system thresholds. Translation: your brain is already running at a higher internal frequency. You don't need the world to excite you because your inner world is already rich, complex, overstimulated. And forcing someone like you into high-stimulation environments isn't energizing. It's neurological warfare. Let's go deeper into the chemistry that separates those who crave home from those who flee it. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter everyone talks about but few understand. It's not just about pleasure, it's about reward sensitivity. How much stimulation your brain needs to feel satisfied. Extroverts have low dopamine sensitivity. They need large doses, loud music, new faces, constant novelty just to feel baseline normal. Their brains are wired for high-intensity, fast-moving reward. But your dopamine receptors are exquisitely sensitive. You get reward from subtlety, from depth, from the quiet satisfaction of a book that changes how you think, from a conversation that actually means something, from the rare moment when someone truly understands you. This is why small talk drains you, why parties feel like performance, why you can socialize for 3 hours and need 3 days to recover. You're not weak. You're processing on a level most people never reach. Now add acetylcholine to the equation. This is the neurotransmitter associated with reflection, long-term memory, deep focus. Introverts rely heavily on acetylcholine pathways. Slower, richer, more internally focused. Extroverts use faster dopamine-adrenaline pathways designed for external action and quick rewards. You're built for depth. They're built for breadth. Neither is wrong. But only one gets pathologized. Here's the twist. Research from Dr. Elaine Aron on sensory processing sensitivity reveals that approximately 20 to 30% of the population has nervous systems that process information more deeply. You notice micro-expressions others miss. You feel emotional undercurrents in rooms. You absorb subtleties that most people filter out unconsciously. This makes you dangerously perceptive, emotionally intelligent, aware. But it also means you can't just bounce back from social interaction. You carry what you experienced. You process it. You digest it. And that requires solitude. Let's talk about something nobody explains correctly. Social energy isn't the same for everyone. For extroverts, social interaction is a battery charger. For you, it's a battery drain. Not because you don't enjoy connection, but because maintaining external engagement while your brain is designed for internal processing is exhausting. Think of it like running software on the wrong operating system. Technically works, but it's inefficient, glitchy, draining. At home, you're not just resting. You're returning to your natural operating frequency. You're stopping the constant translation between your internal reality and external performance. Because here's what people don't see. Every social interaction requires you to manage multiple invisible tasks. Reading body language, monitoring tone, adjusting your energy to match the room, filtering what you say because most people can't handle your actual depth of thought. This is cognitive load. And it's invisible to people who don't experience it. Dr. Marty Olson-Laney's research on introvert brains using PET scans revealed something fascinating. Introverted brains have longer neural pathways. Information travels through more areas, especially those associated with internal thought and emotional processing. Extroverted brains have shorter pathways focused on external stimuli and motor action. You're not slow. You're thorough. You're not overthinking. You're processing at a depth that produces insight, not just reaction. But this depth requires space. Silence. Home. Here's where it gets interesting. People who prefer staying at home often operate with a different emotional architecture than the socially obsessed. You feel more. Not in a weakness sense, in a data collection sense. Your emotional sensors are turned up. You pick up on things others completely miss. The slight shift in someone's voice that signals hurt. The forced smile that hides resentment. The conversation that everyone thinks went well but left someone wounded. This is high sensory processing sensitivity. And it's not a disorder, it's an evolutionary advantage. Throughout human history, every tribe needed people like you. The observers. The ones who noticed patterns, sensed danger, understood emotional undercurrents. While everyone else was reacting, you were analyzing. But here's the cost. You can't turn it off. After being around people, you don't just move on. You carry the emotional residue. You replay conversations. You feel what others felt. You think about what was said and what was hidden. This processing happens best in solitude. In the safety of home. Where you can finally stop performing and start integrating. And here's the psychological power nobody talks about. This makes you dangerous to manipulate. You see through social games. You detect inauthenticity instantly. You know when someone's words don't match their energy. People sense this about you even unconsciously. It's why some people feel uncomfortable around you even though you're quiet. You see too much. Let's address why home feels sacred to you. It's not just comfort. It's control. At home, you control the variables. The sensory input. The social demands. The energy expenditure. The emotional labor. Psychologically, this is massive. For someone with a sensitive nervous system, unpredictable environments create low-grade constant stress. Even fun social situations trigger your threat detection systems because you're monitoring so many variables. Home removes that burden. You can finally drop your guard. Stop scanning. Stop adjusting. Stop translating yourself into a version other people can digest. This might trace back to early patterns. Maybe you were the child who felt different, who noticed that other kids thrived in chaos while you needed quiet, who learned that solitude was safer than the exhausting work of trying to fit in. Psychologist Carl Jung called this the wound of sensitivity. Not because sensitivity is weakness, but because the world punishes it. And home becomes the place where that wound can rest. But here's the reframe. What if this wasn't a wound? What if it was a filter? By preferring solitude, you've unconsciously protected yourself from the energy vampires, the superficial relationships, the people who wanted access to you but didn't deserve it. Your preference for home isn't avoidance. It's discernment. Now for the part that shifts everything. The advantages nobody tells you about. People who love staying at home often possess psychological traits the extroverted world secretly envies. Self-knowledge. You know yourself because you spend time with yourself. You understand your patterns, your triggers, your actual values, not the values you perform for others. This level of self-awareness is rare. Most people are strangers to themselves because they never stop moving long enough to look inward. You also develop something powerful, independent thought. When you're not constantly influenced by group dynamics, social pressure, and collective opinion, your thoughts become truly yours. You form perspectives from deep reflection, not social contagion. This makes you intellectually dangerous. You can't be easily swayed. You can't be manipulated through social proof. You think for yourself in a world designed to make people think in herds. Then there's creative power. History's greatest artists, writers, scientists, and thinkers were often people who preferred solitude. Not because they hated people, but because depth requires space. Innovation requires uninterrupted focus. Insight requires silence. Darwin, Einstein, Kafka, Dickinson, Tesla, Curie. All people who understood that the world's noise was incompatible with the work that mattered. And here's the social advantage nobody expects. You're selectively social. You don't waste energy on shallow connections. When you choose to engage, it's meaningful, deep, memorable. This makes you the friend people come to when they need real conversation. The person they trust with vulnerability. The one they remember. Quality over quantity isn't just a preference. It's a strategy. So if you're someone who feels most alive at home, understand this, you're not missing out. You're opting out. And there's a difference. You're not running from connection. You're protecting your energy for connections that actually matter. You're not afraid of the world. You're just unimpressed by most of what it offers. You're not antisocial. You're deeply social with the few who deserve access. Your brain is wired for depth in a culture addicted to speed. For reflection in a world that celebrates reaction. For meaning in an age of distraction. The people who don't understand you will call it weakness. Let them. Their misunderstanding is proof they operate on a different frequency. Meanwhile, you'll continue building an inner world so rich, so complex, so carefully curated that no party, no crowd, no external validation could ever compete with it. Maybe you were never meant to chase noise. Maybe you were designed to master silence, to hear what others can't, to see what they miss, to think what they avoid. Maybe staying home isn't retreat. Maybe it's strategy. And maybe the people who love staying at home aren't missing life. Maybe they're the only ones actually living it. On their terms. In their depth. In their power. Not everyone will understand. But the ones who do will never forget. If this resonated with you, subscribe and stay curious. Keep exploring the depths of your own mind.